working for WCW, man, and coming in there, how was that? Because, I know WCW, especially during the NWO times, man, I mean, you guys were on top of the world, and of course, that's where you kind of made your reputation for having those those outrageous interviews, man. How was that time? I mean, it had to just be crazy, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. WCW was probably the best place to work. Yeah, looking back, that was the best time and we were drawing, like I said, the NWO, that's when we were drawing huge crowds, And when I first started WCW, of course, that was great also because, that's when it transitioned from the NWA to WCW. So it was all kind of new for everybody, And we were still wrestling in the same area, but it was on a much bigger scale, TBS took us worldwide, a larger audience, and we just started expanding, going worldwide, So it was a great time, Anything you start doing something new, it's always exciting,
I remember vividly just waiting for WCW Saturday Night to come on so I could see what was going on with the Horsemen and the Steiners, of course, and you guys. And I remember some big angles was shot there on that program, man. And, I don't know how you feel. I know wrestling has changed tremendously over the last 10, 15 years, Scotty. But man, everybody I talked to really just misses that style of wrestling and the way it was back then. It was, and I hate to use the word, but it almost seemed more real. What's your opinion on the way things were as opposed to the way things are?
Wrestling's not the way it was before, and unfortunately, it's a shame, just for whatever reason, just wrestling, especially when WCW went out of business, that's when wrestling took a downturn,
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate, I mean, I'm not going to pinpoint because I'll probably get in trouble, but it's I don't know, it's just a lot of people are in wrestling that shouldn't be in wrestling.
Both in front and behind the cameras, right?
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. My friend Jim Mitchell worked, of course, with you guys when you were at WCW. Of course, he was a part of that Blood Runs Cold thing. At that time, man, the way he talked about WCW was it was more or less kind of like a little bit of a madhouse at that time. Is that the way you remember it during that time when all that stuff was going on there?
Oh, yeah, it was crazy because we were going, all these arenas and they were sold out, and we went to St. Louis, the Dome there, and we had like 40,000 people. I mean, it was just crazy. It was a lot, but it was exciting, because we're doing things that haven't been done before, especially keep competing with the, WWF at the time. We were drawing huge ratings, and it's like, that was probably the best time in wrestling as far as, drawing ratings, drawing record crowds, selling huge amounts of merchandise, and the fans were just into it, I venture to say I'll probably never get back to that,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you foresee it ever returning to that level, man? I mean, because it was huge. It was worldwide. I mean, you guys were on lunch boxes and toys, and I mean, everything you could think of. You guys' faces were all over it. And so you really don't think it'll ever get back to that level?
No, because you had two powerhouses going at it. Vince had the first to have a WrestleMania. He pretty much brought it to mainstream, but we also had the big guns to go against them. And it's like people were jumping ship, and that was a big deal too. That's what brought the money up too, is because that's when you had to pay to keep your players, and unfortunately it's not like that now. It's like it's a monopoly, and Vince controls it, and I don't know, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, gotcha.
Unfortunately, and that's what made it exciting. When two big groups were going at it. But like I said, it was great, man. It was an awesome time to be in wrestling,
Yeah, I'm sure nothing will ever compare to that particular moment in time in this business as far as it's concerned. And maybe just like maybe a minute or so, what's the major difference, in your opinion, between working for WCW, TNA, and the WWF/WWE? And what would have been your favorite out of all of those?
I think that anybody that, if you ask Sting, you ask all those guys back, well, Sting's only being WCW. So I think that was the best. It had to be because that's when we were drawing record crowds. We were going against the WWF at the time, that was later WWE. It was like, we beat those guys 82 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And it was just a constant battle of and people were switching channels. And like I said before, with record crowds, record sales on merchandise. And it was just an amazing experience because when they did Raw and we did Nitro, the enthusiasm with the crowd, it was like unbelievable, And it seemed like the whole country was watching it because my buddy Jumbo Elliott was playing football at the time, and he said guys were wearing NWO T-shirts and stuff under their shoulder pads and stuff, and it was just an amazing experience. So that time, that was my favorite time. I think anybody that was involved in that would have to say that because, like I said, I don't know if it's ever going to reach that scale again, but it was just amazing,